So the question is, how do people get on? Well, there's so many models that I looked at, and if you look at the Global Eco-Village Network on their website, they've got every eco-village in the world there, and you can email them directly, which is amazing, and they meet in these big eco-villages every year, you know, to discuss things. Huge. I mean, we're talking about 250,000 people in the world living in these, estimated. But one of the ones I found which was really interesting wasn't the spiritual community, it was in Germany, and very practical. They had a process where they met every week, right? And it was like a therapy session. And they all got together and they all had a big moan. Yeah. And there was somebody not emptying the bins. It was in my book, as I say, or whatever. And they had it out, and they had this process where they resolved issues. Issues didn't get built up at all. Very, very, very emotional. They get very emotional. But they might facilitate people if there's relationship problems. Where, you know, this is where people with counselling skills, all those sort of things, you can bring it. So many people can add to Eco-Village, and that would be where you'd resolve it. I mean, for instance, in a transition town I'm in, there's a guy there who hates one of the people. He's had to have therapy with the people in the group, but it's been very useful. We've moved on, and you'll need that in an eco-village. You'll need some process by which, but most of them operate on a consensus model. They don't have leaders usually. They're very consensus minded, and they also tend to have, like here, the same sort of model where they have different groups. Well, there might be a food group, there might be an energy group. They have different groups looking after various aspects of the community. But they'll also have a general assembly like they have here, where they all come together and they all sort out the problems. Because you cannot have people winding other people up. It can be insidious. The most interesting one is another one in Germany, I can't remember his name, where there's total sexual freedom, and they believe in total expression of sexuality. So they don't have actually people married or partners. They might have various partners, and that seems to work. But we've got to remember, a lot of these places have been going for years and years, so they've worked out schemes. Like we're working out here, you've got to work out schemes, but you've got to start somewhere. But I would say you need some structure.
So is there sort of a maximum and minimum size?
Yeah, I do. I think 2000 in Oroville is very big. They have their own radio station, but you know, that's been open to scandal, Oroville. There's been paedophilia accusations of some of the residents using Indian boys and stuff, you know. I think it got too big. I think if you've got 100 people, it's a good number. Twin Oaks seems to work very well, you know. That's my personal opinion. More organic, and you can have meetings where people can discuss things. But Oroville is so vast, you see, it's very spread out. It's got a huge area.
Would the same apply in the Marxist group that you mentioned?
I'm not sure. Sure. It's very difficult to get details. You know, there's very little literature, which is frustrating. When I started to research this, there's so few books. There really are so few books. The only way you're going to get information is by going there. But the basic start would be to go to the Global Eco-Village Network, because they show the examples. And one of the things that's very interesting is whether you have to buy in a share. Some of you have to buy in a share to join, some of you don't. You know, they're all different structures, but I say that the thing that's very coherent is they have a consensus, all on a consensus. Most of them on a consensus model, so they don't do anything without most of the community coming on board. You know, but I mean, there are places that I wouldn't live. I couldn't live, like Tinker's Bubble. My friend Marco, he lived there for a long time, and he's older than me, you know. And they live in a wood, and they live off the tree, and they have very little food. It's really hard. So it depends on the level of. I think we can develop with technology. You can have a fairly good life. I say the human side is the most important. That's your basic resource, you know. And the thing is, you need to sort out the money side. Who's buying in? Who's not buying in? How many people we have in this community? Do we? It's all based on rules. You have the basic ground rules before you set. And I would say the best way to start an eco-village is from scratch with a core group. That's what I prefer if I'm a bit younger. But I think that's the best way. Then you have a basics of who's going to be laying, what are the rules of engagement, who does that, how many hours. Like Twin Oaks, we do 44 hours a week. We don't do any more, we don't do any less. We have 44 hours, and this is, we get our money from hammocks and furniture, so it's not ideal. But they have a system that works. We've got to find, and I think the whole thing about the tent city university is finding models economically, finding human models that work. But that's an exploratory process. And all you can do is look at other models like eco-villages or other economic systems. It's like my brother says, people who have inhabited this place are criminals. And I sent him an email back saying, well, he's a businessman in the Middle East, he's just been in business all his life. It's the only way you can think. And I said, the real criminals are capitalists, they're the criminals. Do tell me more, because everything's got an alternative. The way the media and everything operates is there's one size fits all, and you can see by the amazing diversity of eco-villages, they're adaptive to human nature, and I think that's the way the future is. Small communities, and you can link up. Look, it's got a regional, it's got global reach. They linked up, share resources, but the human relations is the hardest thing. You probably found that here. It couldn't be more challenging to be in the middle of